Now we're heading to Okuora Farms in the Huranui district. Cosmo's sheltering in the farmyard with Maury Leyland, who owns the property with her husband, John Penno.
We're very close to the mouth of the Huranui River, so just a couple of kilometres back from the mouth. And today it's bleak.
We are standing in a machinery shed because it's driving rain, isn't it? And quite cold too.
I think it's going to get colder. I'd be very happy to show you around, but you're not in full wet weather gear, so it may not be the day.
Yeah. Now tell me what you are doing here on this farm.
Yeah, John and I bought this farm in 2020, March 2020, as things would go, so right as we all went into lockdown. And we've been spending a lot of time thinking about farming and the future of farming. And not just the farming itself, but the future of exporting out of New Zealand and high-value exports out of New Zealand. And so as part of our journey through that, we really wanted to be experiencing farming. John grew up on a farm. He's a long-term farmer. So we got into sheep and beef farming with a plan to learn and to experience what's going on in the industry, but also to diversify, so to identify what higher value options there could be for good quality sheep and beef country that diversify from the standard dairying. So that's what we set out to do, and we're 4 years into that journey. Not a straightforward journey, as you could imagine.
And prior to that, you were working with Fonterra?
Yeah, I am an Aucklander originally. Started my career as an engineer. I was marine oriented rather than agriculturally oriented. Then I was a strategy consultant for a decade, and then I went to Fonterra. Spent more than a decade there, and a lot of time on the executive team, seeing a lot of the big changes that Fonterra went through during that era.
Yes.
Yeah.
And John, of course, is a co-founder of Synlait, and for quite a few years he was the managing director and CEO.
Yeah, that's right. His journey was through farming, agricultural science. For a long time he was a leading scientist and consulting officer and really working in that field. He then turned that to business and started Synlait, first from a farming perspective and then building that business. Yeah, so we've both got the dairying background but very different angles to it.
Tell me about the farm. How much land have you got?
700 hectares, either side of the river. And it's nearly 400 hectares of beautiful, flat, irrigated land, really deep soils, so lovely horticultural grade soils. And then the remainder is rolling and steep hill country, so a bit of a mix, but some really beautiful soils.
Yes. So you came here with some ideas for diversification.
Yep, we had an interest and some knowledge in hops, and the hops industry at the time was going really well. So we immediately put in 3.5 hectares of hops in the same year and half a hectare of pip fruit. At the time we weren't so excited about pip fruit, but the opportunity to learn, so we put in a trial garden. We've got about 20 different varieties of apples, pears, cherries, but we felt if we're doing trialling anyway, let's learn about what could really grow here. And at the same time we also set about doing some development in terms of irrigation and the infrastructure for the sheep and beef farm.
How big a role did climate change have on your decision to plant hop gardens and orchards?
Well, certainly we did a lot of looking, we dug a lot of holes, but we also did a lot of looking at historical climate data before we made the decision to do this. And one thing we noted was that the climate here now is similar to the Nelson Tasman Bays region in the 70s, so that shift of things moving a bit further south. So that was in our minds in terms of areas that maybe have been considered inappropriate for horticulture in the past, getting more appropriate.
We can see your hop gardens from this shed here, and of course everything's very dormant.
Yep, we finished our harvest in the beginning of April, and 5 minutes down the road we've got our hops shed, and so we've got a big wolf hop picker and the kilns. So it's not just the harvesting, you're harvesting and processing each season. So we imported a second-hand picker from Germany and we've built the kilns ourselves. If we were going to go much bigger, obviously you'd want to go sort of state-of-the-art, but while we've been in the trial stage, I think we've managed to get it going really well, actually.
Has a brewery used your hops yet to make beer?
Yeah, well, the thing with hops, unlike some other horticultural crops, is that We put them in the ground in September 2020 and we harvested our first varieties, actually in this shed here, which is no longer our hop shed, in March 21. So they're a pretty short cycle. But yes, so our varieties have been well used. Castle's made some beautiful brews this year.
Oh, Castle's in Christchurch.
Yep, that's right. We really like the whole local flavour. You know, we're doing this because we're passionate about Canterbury, about future opportunities for Canterbury, both in terms of our economy and the environment. So to have the chance to work with local breweries is definitely very much within our sights.
So what do you do on the rest of the farm?
Sheep and beef and dairy grazing. Probably more dairy grazing than we originally thought we'd be doing when we set out, but I mean, you'll be well aware that the meat industry, particularly sheep, is pretty grim. And although dairy farmers are having a tough time, it's a lot better than the sheep and beef. So dairy grazing, has been a real opportunity for us that we're making the most of. So we carry a lot of dairy heifers and cows over winter and graze calves all year round. We're growing winter crops as well as the barley, so we've got a reasonable cropping operation.
And you've also been growing lucerne here for a venture you've started called Leafed.
Yeah, in our first year, yes, we did grow some of the lucerne here. However, Leafed is based out of Rolleston, and we're actually working with local arable farmers in Southbridge who are growing for us there and nice and close to our operation.
Yes. Tell our listeners more about Leafed Foods.
So Leaf Foods is extracting protein from leafy forage crops, something that we are phenomenally excited about, and it's making huge leaps and bounds. We're about to come to market soon.
And so what is this protein?
The protein from leafy green crops is called rubisco. It's the enzyme behind photosynthesis, and it's the most abundant protein in the world. So it's long been known about for well over a century that if you could extract it, it was an incredible source of protein. And it's also been known that it's got a full amino acid profile, that it's soluble, that it would be high yielding, and all these other features. The challenge has been nobody's been able to extract it. So we started out in 2018 and sort of trying to see if it was a viable opportunity. And indeed, our team are doing a phenomenal job of extracting the protein. So technologically, they're nailing it at yields which are exciting and in a process which is highly circular. So the fact that we have this farming system here in New Zealand and we can incorporate what we're doing with Leafed, we can incorporate that farm system into standard farming is a real, is a real plus.
Yes. And how did you come across the idea in the first place?
The team have all arrived, so I might have a bit of background noise.
No worries.
Yeah, we got the concept. We were at a hackathon at Lincoln University, organised by Blink, their innovation unit. And at this hackathon, there were people standing up with their ideas for, the future of food, type ideas. And a plant and food scientist at the end of his career, Rod McDonald, got up and he talked about the concept of extracting protein from leafy crops.
Yes.
And it really sparked our imagination. So following that, we went to see him and learn more about it. I bought a book off the internet because there were books about the technology that had been developed over the past century. And then I had a go at making it at home. And it was enough to say, this might have some potential. So, we could see many challenges and things that might not work ahead, but we pulled together an amazing team pretty early on, and we worked really hard on understanding what assumptions needed to be true for it to work. So I think that's been really beneficial. We've known what milestones we've needed to hit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so why have you chosen lucerne as the main protein-producing crop?
Lucerne's a really well-known crop globally. It was actually the first forage crop to be domesticated by humans because it travelled the world with humans and their horses. And we've grown lucerne in New Zealand for a very long time, so we also know it well here. It fits really well into farming systems. It's a highly productive plant. It's perennial. It fixes its own nitrogen. It's deep-rooted, so it's drought-tolerant. So we like all those things about it. It's not very active in winter, so we've got a real interest in other crops to, as the term in dairy goes, square the curve, so that we've got winter production as well, and we're making some really good progress on other varieties which also fit well into a farming system.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you make with the protein?
One of the important decisions that we made early on, which isn't always a standard New Zealand decision, was that we're going to bring a product to market direct to consumers. So one of the things about Rubisco, it's highly functional, so it's soluble, it foams, it's gels, so everything from the high performance sport type applications to middle-aged women like me, you're looking to increase protein in your diet. If you can think of a use that's going to use protein, then Rubisco is probably going to fit. And we're aiming for the higher value uses. Yeah.
That's great. And so once you've extracted the Rubisco from the lucerne, what happens to the leftover plant? Does it have any value?
Yeah, so our early economic models said we're going to be making a silage from the fibre, if you like, and we need to find a way to get some commercial value from that. And what we've learnt is that it's a protein-reduced silage, but it's also macerated, so it's easy for an animal to digest. So actually for a dairy cow, for example, if she's consuming our silage, she's getting... A dairy cow today actually consumes too much protein, and therefore she has to work hard to process that, turn it into urea, excrete it as urine. So a macerated product that she can digest easily, where the protein she can't absorb is not there anymore, actually has better outcomes in terms of her environmental performance, in terms of her emissions. And that's been a really important part of our model, is to ensure that all our co-products have a really valuable economic home. Yeah.
Now, Leafed Foods has secured some serious investment too.
Yep. One of the goals in what we've been doing there is we want to see change. We want real opportunities for change at scale in terms of them being value creating and environmentally a step up on where we've been. So if we weren't going to do something which was substantial, then maybe we could have done something easier. I don't know. And so the goal of doing something which has real potential for scale has always been the driver. So we did a Series A capital raise, which we concluded in March 22, and that brought on board Cosler Ventures, ACC, Ngāi Tahu, and Stephen Adams. So they came on board then.
Some high-profile names.
Yeah, and a really nice mix of, I think Cosler Ventures are an incredible VC firm out of Silicon Valley, incredibly supportive and been hugely beneficial to us. And Ngāi Tahu and ACC, just really important strategic alignment in terms of the common goals and interests and what we're trying to achieve and the ability to work together on that.
So what is the next step?
Well, we're in our winter shut period, much like a dairy factory. Yes. We're scaling up to go into a big spring and get products into market.
Maury Leyland there, talking to Cosmo Kentish Barnes about plant protein and growing hops at Oku Ora Farms in North Canterbury.